Who wants to go first?
What's the major raises?
Because the rand is a very weak currency. So the wages, minimum wages?
Oh no, I'm talking about races, the different races.
Races?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Remember I said we have 11 official languages. So we have tribes, and we've got a lot of tribes. Black people who are divided in various tribes. I come from the Zulu tribe. This is if you've read a little bit of history, you would know that the Zulus are the ones that are aligned to Shaka. Although I don't kick and I don't fight. And then of course you have the other tribe, Xhosa, the ones that kick. We do that with the language. These are Mandela, Nelson Mandela's tribe. You find them a little bit fairer on the skin, and different features and taller. And they come from the Eastern Cape. Yeah. And then you have, every province has a different tribe. But the tribalism does not really affect our governance, not really. It's you either black or you're white. It's not your tribe that will determine where you will be, not at all. And then, as I said, you've got Indians, Chinese, and we have what you call, we call the Malays colored. As I said to you, I said 15 million Indians, 30 million blacks, and then about 8 million whites. And then others, Chinese.
What's the question on the back?
Yeah, well, it's been 20 years since full democracy. I mean, before that it was apartheid, and has there been, I suppose, a fusion? I mean, a melding a little bit. I mean, recovery between whites and, or are there still very strong tensions?
I would like to, I'm going to be frank with you, I would have loved the collaboration between black and whites to be a little bit more, but we still have serious racial tensions, and I don't really know why, because it's actually not necessary. In simple English, I'm going to just put it blunt, pie is big enough, the cake is big enough for everyone. We don't need to have strife to have one person living better than the other. Not at all. But unfortunately, yes, there is racial friction. The 20 years, it's been a long haul because the current government took over from there are no journalists in here in this room, right?
Not Your Excellency, anybody could be a journalist with blogs and internet, so...
Yeah. I'm going to say because it's the truth anyway.
Yeah.
The current government took over from the apartheid regime and found the purse strings. In actual fact, apartheid was not broken by us. Not at all. Apartheid was broken by the international community. The countries that didn't want to deal with South Africa because of its policies. That you need to remember. And when the apartheid government realized that they have no other way, that's the time when they started talking about releasing Nelson Mandela and his group. Because there was nothing in the purse. They didn't have. We had the resources, but we had a very, very, very bad deficit. So the first 10 years, and if I'm going to again be frank, the first mistake I feel was made by the current government was to actually not relinquish the previous government. What they should have said, my emphasis again is on coalition. If I was the government of that time, I would have told the previous government, right, you made the mess, we'll clean it up together. I wouldn't have let them to just walk away because it's caused so much problems now and finger pointing. Because the minute the current government does something, then it's like you enriching yourself. There's this type of nonsense going on that is really not getting us anywhere. Because if you have a group of people in a room thinking together on the same level, like sitting down and saying, these are our resources, who do we get, who do we go after, who's going to help us, how do we get our house in order, this is our potential, this is the type of dialogue that would appeal to everyone, where there's a clear plan and a clear strategy how to move forward. The 20 years that have been spent, and I've been around for the 20 years, I've seen a lot of improvements. We had very, unfortunately, the apartheid regime didn't have much foresight and didn't think much about the future. So the government had to actually improve the roads, the hospitals. You have to just get everything on the level where it caters for everyone, not a bench, a small little bench, because the bench was only for white people. Now you've got to think, you've got to actually make arrangements for 54 million people. When you do your health plan, this is also one of the reasons when you look at our current situation, we've got a national development plan, and it is actually working. It's just that the politics of the time now hampers the national development plan. And I feel like government just needs to up the ante a bit, because it's not like the outside world is not interested in Southern Africa per se. The Asians, the Americans, the Europeans, everyone realizes that there's potential. And when you look at the infrastructure in Southern Africa, it is actually pretty good. You have roads, you've got running water, you've got everything that you need to bake a perfect cake. It's just the mindset that you need to get right.
Yes.
Your Excellency, thank you very much for the interesting talk. I got two questions. One, what is the OAU doing to help Zimbabwe move away from its prior stances? And what is it doing to kind of move Mugabe off the scene? And secondly, Botswana is doing a good job. It's almost an example of how an African state should develop. Is there anything that the rest of Africa can learn from Botswana?
Okay. When South Africa had its problems, whoever didn't go to jail ran into the continent. So the current government is sitting with a dilemma, which I feel is sometimes unnecessary. South Africa is in a catch-22 situation when it comes to Mr. Mugabe. It's not as if we're blind to his folly. It's not. It's just, I must be careful with my words, but it's an African thing. There's an African word that says Ubuntu. You cannot be if somebody else is not. We Africans do not walk past each other and pretend there's no one there. It's not now. We're not like that. We're not about me. And while it's not a good thing and not a bad thing, in this instance it's bad. Because the fact that Mr. Mugabe has literally ruined this country cannot be ignored. Half of the Zimbabweans that couldn't get into South Africa is all over the world. And Zimbabwe really had it good a while ago. In the 60s, this was the only country in the continent I can remember when I was at university that exported penicillin. They had everything. And it took one man with bitterness and hatred to destroy the country. I have sympathy for my government because they have to stand by and watch, which is not a good thing. I'm not sure if I was the current president I would have tolerated his mess. But I think at this point, I don't know how to answer you, honestly. I really don't. It's not like we're blind, we see what he's doing. The AU, as I said to you, the AU is a problem for Southern Africans are the background. Remember I said we were colonized by the British, so the background, the whole attitude, the lifestyle, and the culture, everything is African but more towards British. When you get to here, you find that it's more Francophone. Most of the Africans here do not even speak their own dialect, they speak French. And I know our Dr. Dlamini Zuma is having a very hard time. Because first of all, you've got to get through the French obstacle, the barrier, and then you've got to deal with the problems. I'm not even sure, she's got a 4-year tenure as well. I'm not sure she's going to, the 4 years is enough to sort out the African issue. And then you have a lot of issues with the Boko Haram, and then you've got blood diamonds, and then you've got oil that is causing problems here. It is just a big mess. And then you have very few leaders across here that, for some reason or the other, once they're nominated as leaders, they think they should rule forever. And that's ridiculous, because you can't do that. You've got to be able to say, I've done enough, I can't take this book further, someone else must take over the pattern. Yeah, I don't know. Then your last question was about Botswana. Botswana also has its own challenges, but Botswana was smart. When, if you remember the history of Botswana, the Botswana leader actually married a British woman, Ruth Kama. Sisaretsi Kama married a British woman. And when they made the deal with the British regarding their diamonds, they said, you're not going to take our diamonds if you don't educate our people. So you find that there's free education. It's a small population, but there's free education to a certain level. That has certainly helped Botswana. But they also have their own little bit of disgruntled youth coming up, which is not really threatening at this point, because because of global issues, you find that De Beers in London has actually moved all its companies right back to Botswana. So that obviously will increase the job situations and opportunities. I know that diamond cutting will be happening here, so I think in the end they will be okay. But they also were, the Botswana people were also hard hit by the HIV pandemic. In fact, the whole continent had Botswana was not exempted. Are you okay with your answers?
I have two questions. Actually, you mentioned that South African has 11 official languages, and how do you, as a person, master it in terms of how many languages you are speaking or writing, and how the education actually nurture that kind of language talent?
Okay. The languages in South Africa, other than the English and the Dutch dialect, which is Afrikaans, the others are all called Ngubeni languages. And funny enough, to a Singaporean it may sound crazy, but if you can speak one, you can understand the other, because the foundation of the Ngubeni languages are really all the same. So it's not as if you're going to be, like I said, if you can speak one, you'll be okay. What happens in an average household is if you have Venda people, they will speak Tsi-Venda. And when you listen to Tsi-Venda, you'll see that it sounds very similar to isiZulu. So it's not a question like you're going to be particularly lost. But at school, you would find that the official languages at school would be English. All kids speak English at school, from pre-primary school level upwards. So the languages, there's a, and this is probably, there's a strong need that Africans feel that they need to keep their languages. And I think it also is a little bit of something that comes from the apartheid regime. Like if you don't speak your language, everything else is taken from you. Remember, our land was taken from us, everything. So I think that there's this need to cling to the languages. So languages, there's even a talk of some of the universities having to specialize in specific languages just to keep that culture. But I don't think the language is an impediment. It's the least of our concerns, really. It is there, and it's something that you live with it. Incidentally, there's some Chinese people that speak isiZulu better than I do. So it's not a problem.
The other concern I actually want to link to what you have answered is that you're talking about languages, but you talk interpret language in terms of spoken one or only both written and spoken are all 11 in total?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
For
So-
written one, are they similar to each other?
No.
No. Okay. But the way they pronounce it,
Yes, the pronunciation would be similar, but not the
so as a
letter.
personal, from an account of your personal experience, how many type of written language you have already mastered, and how do you actually get it? I mean, I'm interested in terms of language acquisition, because Singapore seems to be quite poor in bilingual education.
Yeah. Well, it's true that if you don't make a concerted effort to learn a language, then you will be poor at it. We also don't have, as I said, the Africans are very strange, always in each other's business. So it's very difficult to have a community where you can actually isolate yourself and just say, no, I don't want to deal with you, I'll only speak English. It's just not done. our youth, they're encouraged to learn as many languages as possible. And it's even at university level, if you want to just graduate and learn in multilingual skills, that is available for you. So it would depend on the individual. Do you want to isolate yourself, or do you want to be part of the people?
I still haven't heard your personal sharing about your own acquisition of language.
Okay, now I'm going to have to go back to my personal history again. Remember I said to you, I woke up as a two-year-old and daddy was at Robben Island and mommy at home. Now there's also an interesting story. My dad is a Zulu man and my mother is what you would call a colored from the Malaysian heritage. Long line. So my mother speaks Dutch, my mother speaks Afrikaans. So when Dad went to Ireland, Mother moved back to her family. I actually grew up as an Afrikaans-speaking child. Born in a Zulu household, I could speak isiZulu already. At my grandmother's house, I spoke Afrikaans. So I already, before I was 5, I could already speak 4 languages. And right now, I'm comfortable with all the languages. Whether I can write it is another story, but speak, I'm comfortable.
Yes.
I think find out there's some contradiction here about Afrikaan is a Dutch language.
It is, it's a Dutch dialect.
Then
It
you
is.
say that South was colonized by the British.
Yes.
And then maybe you can elaborate on further on the colonization, before colonization.
History has it that we had a sailor with the name of Jan van Riebeck that came to the coast. And when Van Riebeck came to the coast, you must remember there was also a fight between the so-called British and the so-called Afrikaners. They had a fight, you know that in our history. Even we have the British colonized Southern Africa, but the Dutch also used the southern coast as a trade port, like your Malacca Straits. Same situation there. You had the Dutch passing and you had the British. The British stayed, the Dutch passed and they stayed. The British passed and they stayed and they decided to take over. That's basically what happened in simple English. So you would find that if you go to here, and the French, by the way, if you go to the Cape, if you ever get to travel, you'll find there places with French names, Stellenbosch. There's places with Dutch names. You'll find here on the Cape, all the Cape Townians, everyone speaks that Dutch dialect. Because the Dutch that came didn't leave, they also stayed. That shows you how beautiful it is out there. It really is beautiful. So there's no contradiction per se. We had a, what do they call it? The Anglo-Boer War. We had war where the English fought against the Dutch. It's not really Dutch, it's a Dutch dialect. But if I speak to anyone from the Netherlands, we can understand each other. It's a dialect, honestly.
Sorry, there's one question behind. Yes, yes.
Once again about the language, like I have South African friends whose father is from African speaking family, and his father is from English speaking
Yes.
family. Like,
That is often
so
the
is there
case.
any tension between two language groups, not by the races or tribe, but the language, like English is regarded more, like regarded better language or more official, more powerful, or what about African speakers?
That's an interesting question. I noticed that in Southern Africa you'd find, because of our history, the Afrikaans-speaking people do not want to associate with that history of what happened there. They don't want to associate with our apartheid. So you find that most Afrikaans-speaking people would actually insist that their children speak English. They perceive that the legacy that the English had left is better than that than the Afrikaners. But it's debatable because when you look at the apartheid regime, it was ugly. Whichever way, whoever started it, there's no way you can oppress a nation like that for generations and ever be, you can never be proud of that. So, but most people do speak English. I find it interesting sometimes. I meet Afrikaners and I speak Afrikaans, and I can see I never get told, but there's this polite look on the face like, are you mad? After all the things we've done to you, you still speak Afrikaans. But to me, it's a language. The language doesn't have hatred. It's a language.
Yeah.